And we are live.
All right, I am recording.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Connor.
Big show for you tonight. Lots of exciting stuff. Tiger Woods has dropped out.
Oh, was there a reason?
Yeah, disastrous third round performance.
Oh, okay.
He's just like 9 over par. He's like, yeah, I'm done.
I've won enough of these. I'm leaving.
Yeah, how many of those can you win in your life? It just popped up in my news feed like Tiger Woods quits. I was like, what? Wait a minute. It's one of those news or things where it's like, oh, Tiger Woods has quit. It's like, explain, because they just want you to click on it.
I'm gonna join the senior tour.
He's gonna go play for what are the guys doing? The guys that play for the Saudis are trying to buy all the golf stuff so that people can the Saudis are doing anything they're buying all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah.
Get people into what is it? Get people into just giving them money.
They're just trying to get tourism dollars, or is this like a setup for a bigger deal?
No, they want to own the PGA and own professional sports in certain countries, and of course they'll host events there. But no, they're just looking. Because they know they're hitting we're going to hit the end of oil in about 50 years.
Yeah.
So it's like they're just trying to we're sitting on trillions of dollars. Let's do something with it. So they're doing, but of course that's met with a lot of protest and acrimony because of the way that country operates. When they just murdered a guy in an embassy, that didn't help. But they have a weird attitude towards dissident behavior in Saudi Arabia, because their thinking is wait, especially to their citizens, wait, we provide you with everything. Why would you betray us? And it's because we want freedom. It's no, wait a minute. We provide you everything. Why would you talk badly about the Saudi royal family or the Saudi Arabian government or anything? And it's we want a voice or whatever. It's that just makes things messy. It's we're giving you everything you need, and
they want to be a fancy Borg.
Kind of. There's a lot of countries that have that attitude towards their citizens, and not even despotic countries. There's countries with functional democracies that are why do you want to dissent so much over just really small issues that the majority of the population is not in line with or whatever? And they'll just come out and say it like that, you're just causing unrest. For no one else is saying anything about this but you. But with the Saudis, it's really vulgar stuff. It's well, of course women don't have rights. Read our book. It's wait a minute. That's not a valid argument. It's we take care of people. We don't hurt them unless they defy us. And it's that's called a benevolent dictatorship. But okay.
Did you finish your watch of season 2 of Picard?
No, I got 3 left.
Oh, okay.
Why has the Borg become a benevolent dictatorship?
No, I don't watch. I've only watched the Red Letter Media reviews of it, but I remember you were saying you were going to give the season a chance. So I didn't know if you had wrapped it up and had a thought on it yet.
I've had a 3-week hiatus on really watching anything because I'm doing my spring stuff, but now it's getting hotter, so I'm going to be indoors more, so I'll catch up on things.
But they've also added a new Star Trek show again.
Yeah, the one with Pike on the Enterprise.
Yeah, Star Trek Strange Worlds. which so far is really good because it's just Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's professionals trying to do their job to understand weird situations and try to solve it the best way they can, either through engineering or political savvy or whatever.
Yeah, so it's like traditional Star Trek.
Yes.
It's not social justice Star Trek where it's like, oh, we're going to reach back in time and change everything around.
Yeah, it's like Starfleet suddenly becomes racist and
Yeah.
and like the whole world is very cynical and mean. It's like, this isn't Star Trek.
The sheer fucking audacity. It's like, when did admirals talk like that in Star Trek? Why would we listen to you, Picard? You only saved the planet 500 times. Saved the whole universe. It's like, you're crazy coming here with this. Yeah, some of that stuff's not good.
And have you finished Halo yet?
Nope, I'm on episode 7 of that. That's like fine. That's serviceable.
You're probably on the. Yeah, you're coming up on the worst episodes. These next two. The last one is like fine, but yeah, there is some stuff where it's like I know it's not a great show, but I've been fine with it so far. I can see potential, but there is a thing that happens in the 8th episode where it's like, what the hell are you doing? And you probably have already heard it already, but
no, I actually haven't.
Okay. I won't tell you then. I'll let you be surprised by it.
Be surprised and horrified. I've literally been incommunicado for like 4 weeks. So
yeah, I've been discovering a bunch of stuff because I've just been going through like everything on HBO Max because they're part of Time Warner, so it's also like TNT and TBS, and it's like I haven't watched any show on there for like for years, and so just finding weird comedies and stuff.
Yeah, for some reason when I hit the sometimes there's all kinds of stuff I need to watch, but I just haven't been sitting at my desk very much. So.
Yeah. But yeah, there's been it's coming. We're coming up on or maybe it's already here. We're coming up on the 40th anniversary of The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, cool!
And they're gonna have a re-release on June 19th and the 22nd in select theaters. So, and my theater is showing 2 7:00 showings of it. So I'm gonna try to make it to that.
Oh, okay.
One's on a Sunday and the other's on a Wednesday.
It's one of my favorite like winter movies. It's just watch that movie and then go outside when everything's frozen. It's like, oh, there's stuff running around out here.
But it's like one of those movies where it's like, I've never seen it on the big screen. That'd probably be pretty cool. And I saw pictures of it and it looks like they've done like some remasters. So hopefully it's pretty cool.
Oh, good.
And that was like, I started watching the remake / prequel of The Thing that they did in 2011, which means that's also an 11-year-old movie.
I think I watched like half of that.
Yeah, I never bothered.
I kind of tapped out because it got too much into the alien stuff.
Yeah.
But not like anything having to do with the alien. It was this horrible monster, but it had more to do with like the flying saucer.
And I remember that one was famous for like they did all these like practical effects for it, and then somebody made the decision just like, no, just cover it all up with CGI.
Yeah, just snap it over with CG because no one's smart enough to understand the nuances of what practical effects are.
So I have an awful and clever pitch for a Thing sequel.
Okay.
So we do Alien and Aliens. So of course the sequel's just called Things.
Yeah.
Or maybe The Things. I don't know. And you know that quote about like the uncanny valley? It's like the thing about the uncanny valley is like, why did we evolve a sense where we needed to know something looked like human but wasn't?
Yeah.
And so it's 40 years later and we have a full CGI McCready.
Yes.
And he's all thinged up. But like, I don't know, you have like a team come in, but McCready is McCready, but he's been fully absorbed by the thing.
Yeah.
But he's still McCready. So like when he takes his blood out and does that test, it doesn't pop up as an alien because it's fully human now, but he's been absorbed by the thing, but now it's fully mimicking human. But the thing doesn't have any memory or whatever. It's just a thing. And so like I have to say, like, he's been here, he's somehow survived. Like he doesn't age, he doesn't require food, he just like, you know, absorbs water or whatever and like stays whatever, because like the thing is evolved with human DNA to like survive the Antarctic somehow. You see like petri dishes where it's like he marks the years he's been there, and like slowly like the blood that has like a thing popped out or died as he like hits it with the fire, and like like, you know, after so many years it just stops doing that.
Oh, okay.
Because he has to like prove to a team. But then I thought up an interesting idea where he like takes a sock off, and then he puts that in a petri dish and hits it with fire, and then that things up. So like even his socks are like things. But they're not as advanced yet, because it tries to mimic anything. Because I didn't want to like get into like the, you know, what are the aliens or what do they have or what I want. The only thing I would offer is like he has to reiterate. He's like, I don't know what the aliens are. I don't know what they want. But he speculates that whatever it was is that like the spaceship, and I think the new one has like aliens and stuff like that. But I was gonna have something like the aliens were sending a spacecraft, but it was too dangerous for people or no one could survive. So what they have is just like this medium that can grow into a person, except it like it got out of the spacecraft because of the crash, and it isn't culturalized or anything, so it doesn't know anything. It doesn't have a history or a culture, and so it just absorbs and changes into stuff, and that's like the horror of it.
Yeah, it's like a probe.
Yeah, but it's meant to like, you know, grow up, learn something like when it gets to its spot, and then like, you know, it's like, okay, I have a culture and history, this is my job. But like because the ship crashed, it never gets that. So
Okay.
And then they're like, either they find another spaceship or another spaceship shows up, and then you have two things, and so they're fighting that other thing, and McCready is the good thing. Either that or he has such like, you know, he's been spending this whole time basically like he hasn't contacted anybody. He's like, because he knows like if this gets out, it'll be a bad thing for the world, so he just stays there and he keeps living for whatever reason. And then you do the Wayland Yutani thing, is because you have like these rich people, you basically find out about McCready somehow, and it's like, well, he hasn't aged, so he, you know, he has the power to be ageless, so we need that immediately for all our rich people.
Need to explore that.
Yeah. And you know, that bites him in the ass or whatever. So that's my pitch for a Thing sequel.
Well, actually, speaking of Thing sequels, did you know there's a whole comic book universe of sequels to that?
No.
Yeah, that was starting in 1991. They did, and these were like Dark Horse comics, and they did the Thing from Another World, which was 2 issues, and it's like McCready's rescued by the Japanese, and then he goes back to destroy the rest of the outpost or something, and then it's like then they send in like commandos from America, 'cause it's still set in like 1980 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then they send in commandos and they find McCready, but it's like there's still stuff running around the base, and they have to retreat to Argentina. And then it's like, I forget what else happened. I used to have like the omnibus of these somewhere, but I'm trying to think. It's basically like it ends up in South America, and it starts like in warmer climates, it's even more monstrous and frightening.
Yeah.
It's not just going to freeze to death outside. And but yeah, it's just basically McCready like ends up becoming like a commando to kill these things.
But yeah, I thought it'd be funny just have like a full CG McCready, and it's like, you know, the uncanny valley is a part of the horror. It's like, why does he look real? Because he's not a real person.
Yeah, why do we detect this? And then I think the last comic in that, which was a lot more recently, was like there's another one of those ships. Yeah. But it landed in Greenland, but it's in the Viking era. Vikings find it, but they realize, because, you know, Vikings, I guess they're more in tune with nature and what people are. They know right away when someone's not who they pretend to be. And so they end up, it just becomes like a Viking slaughter fighting these things. I don't remember any of them being particularly standout, but I know there was like, you know, just an expanded thing comic book universe, which, like I said, I just bought like they put all the comics into one big book. Yeah. And it was, and I'm not normally a comics fan, because like I said, they kind of give me headaches, but it had some cool art. It was, you know, it was at 90s, you know, Dark Horse Comics. They were doing some interesting, different stuff.
Yeah, so it looked like a comic, and it was extra violent. So
yeah, and people were swearing and being torn to shreds, and it's like, oh, it's beautifully paneled and detailed. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the Thing in the Uncanny Valley. It's like, we know he's wrong, but we don't know why. It's like, it turns out these things have been here before, and it's part of human evolution to identify when something is too perfect a copy of a person.
And then they also had the Thing video game, which was I've been watching people do replays of that, which was really interesting. I never bought it, but like it always sounded really cool. But like I
played it. I liked it.
Okay. I know there's a lot of frustrating elements to it, and there's ways where you could like just never finish the game, depending on some of the random stuff that can happen.
Well, the problem with the Thing video game is it's cool. It captures the element right, and the paranoia of like, you don't know who's what, but it's kind of like a from the top, over the shoulder, third person. Yeah. So some of the action doesn't work very well, and it also gets very repetitive. Yeah. And then like you're saying, like random shit will happen. Like, oh, the helicopter burned up. It's like, well, I couldn't enable that or stop that from happening, but now I can't finish. Now I'm just wandering around the camp harvesting like resources and flamethrowers and stuff, but it's essentially like I'm in a loop. I can't ever get out of this. Yeah. But it wasn't bad. It captured the atmosphere great. I think whoever did the story and the atmosphere of it was lovingly crafted. Gameplay mechanics a little choppy.
Well, they had some where it's like, well, anybody can be the Thing. People flip out, whether the Thing or not. Sometimes they'll just go crazy, and like you can calm them down. By, like, you come upon some situation where like someone has like, exploded out into Thing whatever and then died, and so that freaks them out. But like it'll calm them down if you give them a gun. But then like they might become the Thing, and now you've lost a gun. Yeah. And then you could do the old blood test stuff. And like that was always because as soon as you do it, like you'll find out, and then sometimes like one person will change, and then like your whole like crew will change with them. Like, wait, what? No.
Yeah, it was kind of like Alien Isolation. Like it was definitely a lovingly rendered, love letter to the original, but but
it's also like PlayStation 2 graphics, so it's not.
Yeah, that wasn't great.
They're doing the best with what they got, so, but it's very ambitious for what it was.
Yeah,
not many video games like do that stuff even now, even though games are like far more advanced. Just nobody really does that. It's kind of intricate systems.
They don't try to like graft an RPG system over a gameplay thing, and where sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I remember that game. I have that game somewhere. I think
depending on its quality, it might be worth money, because I don't think they printed a lot of them, and I don't think it's available for download. Like I don't think anything emulates it. I can't remember who put it out, but whoever put it out might not even exist anymore.
I have to go dust it off. It's worth something.
Let's hear. What are used?
But I know that Ennio Morricone soundtrack, because they included elements.
Because didn't he just do it himself? He like canceled that.
No, he sent him the movie in like a rough cut, and he's like, "Yeah, make a soundtrack for this," because he really didn't have time to work with him. And then he got the soundtrack back, and he didn't like it, but so he did his own. But you can actually, there's elements of that soundtrack you can listen to and were included in the game.
Okay.
Because you also had the John Carpenter soundtrack, which actually didn't come across very well in the game for some reason. But the dun dun dun, it's like they did a lot of that. But
it looks like people are selling it for like $30. So I guess it's not that much. Although somebody's trying to get away with selling it for $80, but
someone will buy it. There's an ass for every seat, as they say in the used car business.
Speaking of cars, we got an F1 update.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm working on a model.
Oh, okay.
This is the Soviet KV-2 tank.
That's like a huge turret.
Yes, it is. Well, it's 150. I think it was 153 millimeter. It was basically an enclosed. This is more of a support tank, not a main battle tank.
Oh, okay.
But it was basically an artillery piece on a rotating turret. And in order to accomplish that, they had to give it a real high profile. Which, if you got hit by this thing, it was devastating, but it was also not hard to spot. More of a heavy support vehicle than a frontline battle tank, but it just looks so ridiculous. It's and I really didn't want to start a new model because I have things I'm working on, but this came out very recently. This is brand new tooling from Tamiya, which means it goes together really nice. It's not a reissue of some kit from the 70s. Like, this is a new version of the old one with brand new tooling, and it has an exceptional amount of detail. This is only like rough build right now, but it's the way you put the handles and the little stair steps on the little grab handles on the side. Yeah. It's much better. It's a pocketed system where the handles actually flared out at the end. So when you stick that in there with glue on it, it like supports itself. You don't have to hold it up. Like, cause the old ones, you would just stick like 2 pins and 2 holes, and there was no like depth gauge or anything. It could go all the way in if you pushed it in too far. And then making those look right on the model where they're all equal as steps was very hard to do. But like this has those pocket rungs is what they call that now. And it also has like the rough cast detail, which you're not going to be able to see on this camera at all. But and the rough weld seams, which you used to have to make yourself. They've included that in here. So yeah, it's a nice, and it doesn't have rubber tracks, which makes it way more realistic. It has plastic tracks where they actually sag at the top like they do in real life. So yeah, I picked this up. It wasn't horribly expensive or anything, but it's like, oh yeah, a goofy tank that I like from 2021 or 2022 tooling. It's like, yeah, let's do that.
Now, is the anti-Russian sentiment like making the cost of these go down?
I don't know. I don't know if it is, because you got to remember this is like Soviet World War II era.
Yeah, but sometimes people get in the fever of being so anti-Russian anything that like.
I think to really be anti-Russian now as a modeler, you'd have to like not buy Zvezda models, and I'm trying to think what the other Russian countries are. But I hate Zvezda models. I've tried to build them before. It's a real cheap. I guess it's recycled plastic, or there's something about the grade of plastic. It's very hard. Sometimes they don't glue together well, and it's really hard to get good paint on them. So it's like, yeah, if you want to protest the Russians, like, don't buy models or products from Russian model companies. But I've only dealt with Zvezda and wasn't too happy with them. But I have bought a lot of Ukrainian models, and they're back in business now. So that's ICM, which used to be like a subcontractor for Revel Germany, but now they're their own. They've been their own thing for like 6-7 years. So. And they put on their website, we're back in business. I think I mentioned it on the last thing. They're doing the Ghost of Kiev model.
That was off podcast. We were talking about that. But
yeah, so they're doing it's 1/72 scale aircraft MiG. I don't like that kind of small scale. So, But if they came out with a big version of it, because it has that hexagonal camouflage that they like to do now, where it looks like a digital pattern on the planes, it's like, yeah, they've got a kit that you can actually like put that pattern on. So if they have that in a bigger scale, I might do it someday. But I haven't heard like a lot of. I mean, I'm sure it's out there. I mean, there's definitely people that say do not financially support Russian model companies because you're just boycotting them, and that's fine. But like Tamiya is a Japanese company, so they're just making a model of, and the Russians were kind of the good guys in World War II, unless you look at how they conducted the war in Europe, and then maybe not so good. I don't know. Maybe the Russians were in World War II were kind of like, hey, we need to kill that horse. That horse is bad. It's going to do bad things. And they go do it with a chainsaw instead of a rifle. And you're like, well, thanks, I guess. We were actually just going to shoot the horse. But if you wanted to do it that way, Soviet Union, that's. So, but I haven't heard. No, I do know some model shows are like no modern Russian. Like they just had a big one in Japan. It was like no modern Russian vehicles of war, but Soviet era stuff is okay because that was like the past. That was the other time when they actually murdered like millions of people. It's like that's okay. But no, there's no you can do Ukrainian redress of Soviet Russian equipment, modern equipment if you want to. That's fine. Because it's all the same stuff. So actually the Ukrainians have better tanks than the Russians because they have a tank factory there and they make them for export. So they build them to a higher standard. They just don't have very many of them. They don't have like 5,000 of them or something, but
not ones they built.
Not ones they built. No, they actually build them to a high standard, but I've seen a few things, but nothing crazy. I mean, I'm sure there's people that would argue that with me, and it's like, well, I'm just building stuff from the past. I don't have Vladimir Putin's face on the side of this with a big thumbs up, so I don't really support.
Well, I know that like there's some people like in wrestling where like there's this one lady, she works for AEW, and like her entrance, she always says like from Moscow, Russia, but she was like adopted when she was 9, so she's basically an American. But like, yeah, she's trying to. So like, that went away, but she still had like her old like gear, still had like Russian like flags on it and stuff, or like not flags, but like the colors and the order. Yeah. And like, people are of course mad at her about that. And it's like, yeah, I don't support Russia. I just was kind of using that as an identity to be different, but like, so she had to get rid of all that stuff. And stop using the from Moscow, Russia, and like from New Jersey. Or there's another wrestler, like her name's Masha Slamovich, and she is from Russia, but she doesn't live there currently. So, but people, and like when she got announced, there was people like kind of like hesitating. It's like, should we cheer because we like her, or boo her because she's Russian? So there's that hesitancy.
Yeah. We're going back to 80s paradigm when remember when they had fake Russians or guys that were Russian, but they had like the hammer and sickle, and they were always the bad guys. Like, we got to go back to that dynamic.
They haven't done that yet, but that's never like wrestling. I mean, that's usually a WWE thing, but yeah, wrestling's never balks at like just being completely unashamed about making simple black and white things.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt, I don't know. There's one, like, you probably never heard of this. I never seen it, but like when Desert Storm started, the first one in 91 or 90 or around the same time.
Yeah.
Sergeant Slaughter, right?
Yes.
All American, G.I. Joe, and a wrestler. Well, they had him defect, and he was like an Iraqi sympathizer during the first Desert Storm.
Interesting character move.
And people did not like it, so that disappeared.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think at some point with some of this stuff, I mean, you got to delineate. Like, do you have a problem with, like, there are people from Russia that are called Russians. It's it's like, but they are just the people of that country. They're not the government of that country. It's just like, you know, like around here when Trump was president and, you know, Canadians would say shit. He says like, I didn't vote for him. I never supported the guy. He's just, this is what our process delivered us. And we can definitely debate the good or the bad of it. But it's like, I am just a citizen of said country. I'm not in their military. I'm not in their secret services. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, it makes it really tough. And especially with how the Russians act and the things they do with their military and stuff, it's really hard. I know people get really angry. It's like, oh, they're just murderers. And it's like, yeah, they objectively, the people in their military, certain members of their military are doing that. But it's like, yeah, it's probably not a good time to be waving the 3-colored flag around. But I don't think you should, you know, deny the fact that you're Russian if you are. Just don't be like too enthusiastic about Putin unless he's got your mom held hostage somewhere. Then maybe you have to do that.
Yeah.
Those are miserable places. I mean, just awful shit goes, like stuff that we would joke about, like the mob doing, like, oh, is it going to break your legs? Are they going to go after your parents or something? It's like, if you owe them money, it's like, oh, in Russia, that's real. Like that's the government. That's not some external criminal organization that you can go to the police and like try to get something solved. No, that's the actual government of your country.
State sanctioned crime.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. I've always been fascinated with the Russians, especially during the Soviet time. I spent a lot of time reading and talking about stuff during the Cold War. I do think generally their citizens seem a little more sympathetic to me, but then sometimes they open their mouth and I'm like, oh no, okay, shut up. This is bad, you know. But then I think, well, it's like, why are they doing that? Are they being coerced in some way? Do they really believe that? Because that's the only world they know. Because we believe things that as Americans that are totally stupid, but we don't know any different. It's just like, yeah, this is what seems normal to us. So maybe to them, just like having an actively corrupt, cruel government that wages war with its neighbors is like, well, that's just how history works, you know, to them. And who knows what they're being told.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked off mic about things that I read translated from their media, and it's like, oh, this is bizarre. I'm not going to repeat them here, but it's like they're being told some very strange stuff. I don't know if they believe that or if they don't, or a certain part of the, you know, because we have a lot of dummies here too that believe a lot of stupid nonsense. So, but when you're being bombarded every day with like, we're liberating Ukraine from the, you know, U.S. and their Nazi allies, it's like, well, okay, you know, they say stuff to us that on its face seems dumb and like obviously propaganda, but maybe it works on some level over there. Just like Fox News works on some level here. It's kind of a mystery. It's all what you want to believe and what you need to believe.
Yeah. Confirmation bias.
Yeah, well,
I think this is happening, and they're saying it's happening. Is it happening? No.
one thing that I know about reading about Russians and dealing and working with Russians, as I have often many times over the years, is they have a thing with like pride, and they have a thing with like being very proud of what they accomplished and what they did. And to us, to our ears, sometimes it sounds kind of strange or oblique, or it's like, yeah, you're talking about things that happened 40 or 70 years ago. It's like, what's going on now? You know, what's going on lately? Well, now it's a bad time because, you know, the other nations of the world have aligned themselves against us. Like, have they? And I'm talking like 10 years ago. I'm not talking about current times. It's like, who's aligned themselves against you and why? It's like, well, they don't like Putin. It's like, okay, and why is that? You know, because I always ask I'm always just like, tell me. I'm not here to refute what you're saying. I just want to understand it. It gets super vague and falls into the category of what I call general conspiracy theory about, you know, it's like, well, it's this group of people or that group of people. And it's like, you know, you're attaching a lot of power to a very small cabal of people that are doing things. And I think we all know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about. And it's always that kind of stuff. So after a while, I just like, okay, yeah, whatever you got to believe, pal. You know, it doesn't weigh on my life a whole lot. So, and we do the same kind of shit here. You know, America can do no wrong in some people's eyes. And when you point out clearly, like, we've done wrong and this is why, and this is what it is, it's like, oh, you hate America. It's like, no, I just want it to be better and admit its faults and not repeat the same mistakes. That's what we want. Did you hear about former President Bush's slip up?
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
That was the
That
most
was the
Freudian
most
thing I'd ever.
wrong thing you can say.
Yeah.
The illegal invasion of Iraq. I mean, Ukraine's like, no, both are correct.
Yeah. It's like, you're not wrong. Because when I first heard that, I thought, oh, did he launch into some weird, like, guilt-ridden? It's like, here at the end of my life, I want. And it's like, no, he just made one of his famous Bush gaffes, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he's been playing us all for idiots for years. He's like, yeah, I knew it was wrong. I'm not in prison, am I? All that Bush stuff was like, oh, okay. But that was the best thing I've heard in a while. Because a lot of people do bring this. It's like, well, don't be so self-righteous, America. You did the same thing. It's like, well, yeah, on some tangential level, but the follow-through didn't include, we're just going to line up people and shoot them in the back of the head. At least not en masse that I ever heard of. I mean, things happen, yes, but not it wasn't like doctrine. It's like, yeah, go kill all the people in that village. With rifles at, face-to-face range, not with a missile that went astray or something. But yeah, that was the best Freudian slip I'd heard of in a long time. And he made a joke about it. He's like, yeah, I'm 75, just had one of those moments. It's like, no, that's been your whole life. You've been saying weird stuff. It's like, are you telling the truth? Are you confessing in some weird way, or are you just
misremembered again?
Yep. Yeah, it's like, why are you painting these weird pictures of oh, these are the soldiers that got mutilated in the war I started. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Can you just retire as a statesman and not be weird about everything?
Just go watch a baseball game and be quiet.
Yeah. Why are you saying this stuff? It's weird and wrong. I know it was wrong. That's why I didn't vote for you twice. So. All right. So back to what we really want to talk about. We had a big race in Miami. Miami. Let me call up the information. We had the Miami GP.
Which is, I'm not sure if they've other F1 races in Florida, but this is the first one in Miami. So
yeah, it's the very first running of the Miami.
It's also interesting because usually you have tracks that pay F1 to race at their tracks.
Yeah.
This is a fully financed by F1 track.
Yep.
So they paid to be there. They paid to build it. They paid to be there, and they make it as a big a spectacle as they could, and it was a gigantic spectacle.
Well, it was now the over sponsor was Crypto.com.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting. Like, do they exist anymore? Is this like the first and last F1 race they're gonna sponsor? Or
I mean, every F1 car has their own crypto sponsor, so yeah, that's why I named one of my F1 fantasy teams was crypto sponsors.
Oh, okay.
The F1 fantasy thing I do does not have gambling involved, so
not yet. It's a gateway drug.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to see what my guesses are based on a budget. It's kind of the Ferrari are the big deal right now because you can get both Ferrari drivers for under 20 million, and you can make them a turbo driver for the week, which will get you double points. And because Leclerc basically wins every other race, like, you get the huge points. But yeah, they didn't have a lot of support series. They only had W series here for this race, so it didn't get really rubbered up for the race. So there wasn't a lot of racing. So the drivers were complaining about the track, saying it was basically like off the racing line. It was just too slippery, so it was basically like driving on a wet track essentially.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel bad because I feel like, they put all this money into it, and it's being, presumably built by Americans. Like, well, we can't get this right, but I don't know what concerns they have. They have to build a track in like a place that actually has weather, so that's
yeah.
I'm like, what do they do at Spa? I mean, Spa has tons of weather, and they don't really complain about the track there. But also, Spa is constantly in financial ruin, so maybe there's a reason. they, people build tracks in certain ways with certain asphalts. But yeah, they're saying the way they built the asphalt, it was like almost crumbly and sandy on top. So
Okay.
So that's kind of weird. Interesting track. Wait until the game comes out so I can race it because it looks like a cool track. But when we got to the race, it was kind of a bookend race. It was like very exciting at the beginning, very exciting at the end, pretty just kind of standard and boring in the middle. But
Yeah.
and it was actually like the practice sessions were probably more exciting because there was a bunch of wrecks in practice, and then there was no wrecks in qualifying, and then there was a wreck in the race, but it was like very weird and awkward, and like nobody hit a wall or anything. But it was
Yeah,
just
somebody's got their tire ripped off.
yeah. And the Haas were like really racy this race. They're fighting everywhere. They kept the cameras because Leclerc getting pole, it gets out front, but I think by like the third or fourth lap, like Verstappen makes a move on him and he gets by. And so I think they were thought like, all right, we're gonna go to the whole Verstappen Leclerc like trading places thing. So they just kept the camera on them for like half the race, and like kind of nothing happened because like Verstappen was just running away with it because the car was like just way faster in the straights. Because there's even that part at the end where Leclerc's like getting super close to him. He has the DRS open, and then like Verstappen with no DRS is still like accelerating away from him because that's just how fast the Red Bulls were.
Yeah.
But that's also set up that the Red Bulls are kind of using their straight line advantage right now, and then the Ferraris are kind of a lot of wing on it, so they're better in the corners, but slower on the straights. But it's just the trade-offs you have.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you watched like the ticker, you saw like the Haas cars were just like trading back and forth, like going up and down, up and down. It's like, oh, what's all this racing that's happening that we aren't seeing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was also kind of sad because like this is probably the best race that Mick Schumacher had. And they had a chance to get him in the points, but they had to like leave him out on old tires when the safety car came out. And but he was trying to defend like for his life and it wasn't working. And then he ends up bashing into the side of his mentor and friend, Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah.
But yeah, the probably the weirdest thing this weekend is that so the Aston Martin qualified pretty well. I think both of them were in the like around the like 10 to 12 range, and they both had to start out of the pits because their fuel was too cold.
Okay. Yeah, I remember they had to like refuel.
Yeah, so they had to put new fuel in at the correct temperature, and because they did that, they had to start from the pit lane, which I've never. I mean, I've had a very brief history at F1, but of all the stuff I've like been learning about it, I've never heard of that one before. So I'm like, because the cold does it colder fuel? Is it like colder air? You just fit more in it somehow.
Yeah, I mean things contract when they're cold, but I don't know about that one.
But I don't know. Somebody said that just like somebody forgot to. It was more like a clerical error, like we forgot to turn the heater on or something like that. But
oh, okay.
Or turn the cooler off. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they started from the pit lane, so they were just going long, and so they started on the hard tire, and then they're just waiting for everybody to pit, and they were just holding on until they got a safety car to pit, and so they ended up holding up. They held up like everybody. Like McLaren ended up doing bad. They were fighting with Haas. Like they're just in everybody's way.
Yeah. All right.
But
well, we're gonna we'll wrap up the race talk, and then we're gonna have to probably stop the show tonight.
All right.
Sorry about that.
All right.
So, was there anything else you wanted to say about it, or?
It was an okay race. Verstappen won. Leclerc was second. think Perez was third.
Okay.
Haas was in the points, and then they but Aston Martin did a really good job, so that was good on them because they had been pretty much terrible the whole season. So, but now this week they've essentially copied the Red Bull car, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
They're used to copying other teams' cars. So.
Yeah, that's like a thing with them. All right. Well, this week for an abbreviated American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon. Goodbye, America.